Welcome in to the Unnamed Sports Show. I'm your host, Ryan. I'm joined by my co host today, Jerry. We are down one. Jason is on IR this week. He
God rest
came,
his soul.
yeah, came down with an illness this weekend, is unable to join us today, but we thank you for joining us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment, follow us on social media at Unnamed Sports S, all that good stuff. We appreciate you being here today. Jerry, how are we feeling? You're not sick too, are you?
I'm coming down from my sickness, so I was a little sick during the show last week. I had a little cough. If you didn't notice, I was like trying to mute my mic whenever I coughed, so I wasn't blowing people's eardrums out. But feeling much better now and ready to rock and roll.
All right. Well, I'm glad. Hopefully, I'm not next. That would that'd be pretty unfortunate.
Yeah.
Um, but let's jump right into the show. Crazy week in the NFL this week. Our teams, of course, played. Rather sad outcome. If you're a Browns fan, we can get to that in a second. But we start on Thanksgiving with probably one of our worst takes we've ever had. We stated that the Packers were going to get blown out by the Lions, that this was a new Lions team. The Lions, who had been so bad for so long and are now sitting at the top of the NFC, we thought Thanksgiving's going to be different. People got food in their bellies. We're enjoying some football. Lions are playing, but this is a different Lions team. Not on
Nope.
Thanksgiving. They are 1-10 in the last 11 years on Thanksgiving. They lose to the Packers 29-22. Jordan Love has a career day. What'd you make of the game?
Well, Jared Goff has officially hit the list for people not to bet on because he turned the ball over so many times, and he did it against the Bears too. Um, and
Six
we sh-
times in the last two games.
6 turnovers in the last 2 games for Jared Goff. So he's on the list. Never betting on him again until like probably this week. um, yeah, no, it was a bad game for the Lions. We should have seen this one coming. I should have seen this one coming. I'm the one who said Jordan Love was not good. It turns out he might be okay. We'll see later down the line. Yeah, it was typical Lions on Thanksgiving. Should have seen this one coming.
Yeah, it's interesting because Jordan Love, who has basically just been like this all season,
Hmm.
you never know which one you're going to get. The last
Hmm.
2 weeks, he's been very good. This week, especially, 3 touchdowns, 125 passer rating, big win over a in division rival in Detroit on Thanksgiving. Now they get a little bit of a mini bye week. Packers seem to be on the up and up. They're right outside that playoff picture. They might make a run for it here. Do you think they'll make that last kind of slide in? Or do you think
Uh, I don't think
defense
so.
is bad?
Yeah, their defense is pretty bad, man. The NFC, they're definitely not making a run for the division. And the bottom of the NFC, there's a couple teams that are just downright better than they are, and I just don't see them making a run.
We'll see. I don't know. Is it going to be the next Aaron Rodgers, the next Brett Favre? This team, it's funny if you compare the Packers to the Browns, and I know a lot about both these teams because my favorite team when I was a kid was the Packers. My favorite team now is the Cleveland Browns. Not sure why I made that switch, but uh, over the last or since 1994, the Green Bay Packers have had three starting quarterbacks. In that same amount of time, the Browns have had over 30, and we're about to be on our fourth this season. So definitely two different franchises. If any sort of franchise can slide their way into the playoffs, I think it's the Packers. But we'll see as the season rolls along. The other two games on Thanksgiving were rather boring in the sense that they were complete blowouts, and we sort of predicted they would probably be complete blowouts. The Cowboys beat up on a very inferior opponent in the Commanders. They win 45-10. Um, then the 49ers travel into Seattle and beat the brakes off the Seahawks. That game was actually a little bit closer until the fourth quarter when it kind of blew open, but
Yeah,
I think go ahead.
I was just gonna say it seemed like the Seahawks just never had the ball in the first half. The 49ers kind of dominated the first half, getting CMC on the ground and getting the ball to Debo in open space. Yeah, the Seahawks it seemed like they never had the ball, and then finally they were able to get a pick six and kind of get it rolling from there. But it was kind of a domination. I'm glad glad we got 2 out of the 3 games on Thanksgiving right at least.
Hey, 66%. That's pretty
It's
good.
not bad.
That's not bad at all. We move on to the Black Friday game. Weird that the NFL is playing on Black Friday, but the Dolphins go in and absolutely destroy the Jets. The Jets are in shambles. They're not going to be any good this year. They're not really worth talking about, except Aaron Rodgers spotted at practice again this week. Pretty insane. Is that speed bridge going to make a difference for the Jets coming down the stretch here?
Mm, no, no, it's not. The Jets got a lot of problems. Yeah, a lot of it has to do with the quarterback, but I think by the time that he comes back, they're just going to be too far out of it. They're already not in the hunt for a playoff spot. In our power rankings coming up, we have them pretty low, and you'll see that in a little bit. But the team is just not. It's not there. And Nathaniel Hackett, I know, with Aaron Rodgers, him and Green Bay, they were able to put some stuff together. They were kind of a dynamic duo. And that was kind of the whole reason he went to Denver, was to bring Aaron Rodgers, and that obviously didn't end up happening. Unfortunately, kind of a waste of a season for my boys. But they're just going to be too far out of it by the time he makes his comeback, and I just don't see any point for him coming back this year.
Yeah, it's starting to seem to me that Nathaniel Hackett is a product of Aaron Rodgers. And, I think you have to work in tandem with your coordinator, obviously. For those that don't know, Nathaniel Hackett is the offensive coordinator that was with the Packers, became the head coach of the Denver Broncos, was fired midseason, and is now the offensive coordinator for the New York Jets. Was supposed to come in with Aaron Rodgers, completely revitalize that offense. But what's ended up happening is with the Aaron Rodgers injury, they're stuck with Zach Wilson, who is not a good quarterback. He's so bad that they've moved to Tim Boyle, who had more interceptions than touchdowns in his college career. So you're talking about a guy who has not been successful on any level, being better than the guy you drafted number 2 overall. So, you know, obviously they're in quarterback turmoil. They're in a rough situation, but Nathaniel Hackett seems to show that when he was in Green Bay, he was successful because Aaron Rodgers was successful, and Aaron Rodgers was successful before he was there. And
Right.
now every time Nathaniel Hackett's been without him, he's been very bad. So I wouldn't be surprised if even if Aaron Rodgers comes back, I wouldn't be surprised if Nathaniel Hackett does not. So,
Yep.
um, moving on to the Sunday slate. We had the Saints at the Falcons. That determined the place for the NFC South. The Falcons win 24-15. The Steelers at Bengals. A pretty uneventful, boring game. 16-10 Steelers win. But an interesting stat for you. Last week, the Browns got Matt Canada fired because he is such a bad, again, offense coordinator. Apparently, this is going to be the offensive coordinator show. But in games with Matt Canada, the Steelers had 0 out of 59 games with over 400 yards of total offense. In games without Matt Canada, they're 1 for 1, baby. 1 for 1. If that doesn't show you how bad he was, I don't know what does.
Yeah, pretty incredible to see them take that leap again against a banged up Bengals team, but against a Bengals team that with Joe Burrow were looking for a playoff spot. I think they still have some work to do on capitalizing on opportunities. Obviously, 400 yards of offense, but only 16 points on the board is kind of concerning. But hey, taking a step in the right direction by moving the ball down the field.
I also think the Bengals may have gotten the Browns' game plan for that game because with their backup quarterback, I believe Joe Mixon only touched the ball 7 times in that game.
Yeah.
They asked Browning to throw the ball a lot against a very good Steelers defense with both Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt. And it still was a 6 point game,
Mhm.
so I think if they would have ran the ball a little bit more, they may have had more of a shot. Who knows? Panthers still suck. They played the Titans. They lost 17-10. They fire their head coach, Frank Reich. First coach to ever be fired in back-to-back seasons. Halfway through the season, both times. Made it through week 11. I think both times. I think he was fired week
Yeah,
11, right?
I think
Or is
that's
this week
correct.
12?
We're going into week 13, so after week 12,
Yeah,
yeah.
so week 12.
Yeah.
They made it one more week. Hey,
Hey,
one
progress.
more week. Progress.
Progress.
He'll make it to week 13 next week. Whoever is dumb enough to hire him. Jaguars take first place. They beat the Texans 24-21. Trevor Lawrence starting to look like, I've always thought he's like that half step below that all-star level. He's definitely progressing over these last couple years. Seems to be like just just below that kind of high quality all-star quarterback,
Mhm.
but seems to be getting closer and closer. 364 passing yards, 2 touchdowns responsible for, and again, first place in the division. And CJ Stroud, still an excellent game. Over 60% completion percentage, 304 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 touchdowns through the air, 1 on the ground, 0 interceptions. Both of these teams look like they should be in the playoffs.
Yeah, definitely. I think the Jags, with this game, I think they kind of solidified themselves as the division leader, if not winner, like without a doubt. The Texans, they were inches away from forcing overtime in that, right? What's
Literally.
their kicker's name?
Matt Amendola
Matt
missed it
Amendola. Yeah,
by
because Kyrie Fairbairn's on injured reserve. So
Yeah, but Matt
that
Amendola kicked a 58-yarder. I mean, that
yeah,
wasn't like
no,
47,
no, it
and
was it
he
was a
hit the
bomb.
crossbar.
It was a bomb, and it goes off the crossbar, bounces out again inches. I'm not saying that they win that game because obviously that only forces overtime, but hey, gives them another shot. Excuse me. But yeah, Trevor Lawrence has really, really done a nice job of taking a step into kind of that. I think you said it right. He's kind of on that borderline elite category. Like he's getting there, but he's not quite there yet. But with the weapons that he has around him and Calvin Ridley, Travis Etienne, Say Jones, Evan Ingram, Christian Kirk, they can really make some noise in the playoffs. And I would not be surprised to see them fighting for that 1 seed coming down the line here.
It'll be interesting coming down the stretch. And what's also their defense has also been what's kind of keeping them in these games when
Mhm.
the games that Trevor Lawrence hasn't been excellent in. The Jaguars are second in the NFL in takeaways, which they were first for the longest time until the team we're about to talk about in a second just took first place because of their 5-game win streak. But
Mhm.
the Jaguars look to be very solid, and I do not envy anyone playing against them,
Yeah,
especially these guys next week.
2 weeks.
Next game or
2
two.
weeks.
Well, sorry, not. Well, I was thinking like this week's Rams. Next week is,
I gotcha. Okay, I gotcha. Yeah.
1.5 weeks. You know, however you look at it, tomato, tomato. The next game, Browns at Broncos. Broncos put a whipping on the Browns, 29-12. Game was a lot closer than the final score suggests. But 5 straight wins for the Broncos, and they have 22 turnovers on the year, 16 turnovers in that 5-game stretch, which is absolutely absurd. They're number one in the NFL now in takeaways. Uh, their reign of dominance for the last few weeks has been relatively unbelievable, especially considering they lost the game by 50 points this year. Okay,
Yep.
and this isn't
They sure did.
you know San Diego State against Alabama. This is two NFL teams. They lost by 50, 6-5 in the
Six and
playoff
five. 6 and 5. They're in that. I think they're in the 9 seed right now. They're behind the Colts and the Texans. So, we're on the outside looking in, but we have a big game this week. Huge game, massive game against the Texans in Houston. Will CJ Stroud be able to continue his dominance and his just unbelievable rookie year against a Denver defense that has, within the last 5 games, absolutely made a complete 180 from that 70-point debacle against Miami and arguably playing like the best defense in the league right now with the amount of takeaways that they are producing. I'm so excited to watch this game on Sunday. I cannot wait. I'm pulling for my boys. I know they're dogs, but and with the defense playing like that, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and Russ is taking care of the ball. His yards aren't spectacular, but he's got a lot of touchdown passes. He does not turning the ball over. And if you listened and watched that game, he was checking that off. He's got a very strong command of that offense. He was checking them into plays that were getting them consistent first downs against the number one defense in the NFL. And it was extremely impressive. They were running this inside zone trap play that basically gutted us for 7 yards every time they ran it. And it was always when we would get into these wide nine defensive end techniques, and he'd just be like, okay, yeah, you want to play hard outside, you want to try and rush up field, we'll gash you up the middle every play, and it
Mm-hmm.
worked. So kudos to Sean Payton for turning that ship around. It looks like uh, they have a very good shot at making the playoffs. On the flip side of that game, the Browns, hard to tell. That defense is absolutely fantastic. Even this last week, which is a lot of people would consider to be a bad game, they still gave up only 134 yards in the air. Like that's insane.
Hmm.
Only 134 yards. They still lead the league by 50 yards a game in total yards given up. They still gave up less than 300 yards. The only thing that is a little bit concerning is their rush defense. They're now only ninth in the NFL. Terrible.
Yeah,
So
so bad.
their defense is still stellar. They're going to put up good numbers. The question will be, can our offense put up more than 13 points? Back to back weeks, DTR started. Back to back weeks, we haven't cleared 13 points. I
Mhm.
thought he looked really good, but with 6 drops and only running the ball 16 times, it's going to be difficult for us to win those tight games. So we'll see. I still think we make the playoffs. I don't think we have the talent just because of injury to make a really deep run, but with the number one defense, hard to tell.
Mhm.
Moving on, the Rams absolutely obliterated the Cardinals 37-14. Chiefs beat the Raiders. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are back. They won 31-17. Bills at Eagles. Sean McDermott 1-6 in overtime games in his career.
Mhm.
Pretty awful. The Bills now at 6-6 are the first team since 1950. So, how many years is that, Jerry? 73
73.
years.
Man, we're so good at math.
I know.
So good at math.
First time in 73 years that a team has had a plus 101 point differential, meaning they have outscored their opposition by 101 points but still have a not a winning record. They're 6-6. They're a 500 record. They do not have a winning record with the plus 101 point differential. Absolutely absurd. They're 2-6 in one score games. That's tied with worse in the NFL with the Patriots. The Bills though seem to still be highly ranked by a lot of ESPN and NFL uh, talking heads. I don't understand it. They are not. They're bad. They're not winning games. I don't get it.
Yeah, they're not winning games. I saw a stat, I believe Josh Allen, since they made that overtime change with what happened in the game against the Chiefs a couple years ago in the playoffs, where they didn't get the ball in overtime and the Chiefs went down and scored. He's now 0-5 in in overtime games since that happened. But on the flip side, you look at a game like that, and this does not excuse any of the mistakes that Josh Allen has made in the last, I don't know, a couple weeks, because he's made a lot of them, right? Josh Allen played a hell of a game on Sunday and put his team in a position to win. Uh, and barring an insane 60-yard field goal from Jake Elliott in the elements, I mean, just an absolute nuke through the uprights. They do win that game, but it makes no sense why they're 6-6 with an offense that played so well. It's got to be their defense is just so beat up and so bad.
Yeah.
They give up everything. How are you going to win games with a defense like that?
Yeah, they're pretty porous as well. Josh Allen has 33 touchdowns on the year.
Mm-hmm.
33. That's leading the NFL. 6-6.
6-6, 500, and I
Also
think
leads the league in interceptions. So we
yeah,
don't have to talk about
I
that.
think I
But
think the Bills are also kind of what we think the Cowboys are, and that they beat up on bad teams. They're really good against bad teams. They win games that they should. Maybe they drop one or two here or there, but they cannot compete with teams like the Eagles or teams like the Chiefs. You
they
know,
can compete. They just
they
can't win. They
well, I
just
mean,
don't win.
you want to be in the upper echelon of the NFL. You got to beat those teams.
I
You know,
agree.
you
I
can't
agree.
sit there at 6-6. Probably, and with the schedule like they have, they're not going to make the playoffs this year. Very likely that they do not make the playoffs this year.
Yeah, that's something like they're at like 20% chance of making it.
Yeah.
Pretty unbelievable for a team that just a couple years ago was in the AFC Championship game and had a real shot to go to the Super Bowl.
Hmm.
Finishing up on Sunday, we had the Ravens at Chargers. Chargers lose another game. Brandon Staley, that seat is hot. I don't know how he's not already fired. And then Bears and Vikings on Monday night. I'm sorry to anyone who watched that game. That did not. That looked like a high school state semifinal. That was
I would
tough
have
to
rather
watch.
watched a high school state semifinal than that.
That was bad. That was bad. Bears pull it out 12-10. Josh Dobbs, who 2 weeks ago everyone was saying Watch out for this guy. The pastronaut is coming. That's because if you don't know, he's also an astronaut. But he was not an
Houston,
astronaut
we
this
have a
day.
problem.
He threw 4 interceptions against the Chicago Bears in division rival. The Bears stink. Justin Fields stinks. The Vikings stink. It was just bad. It's not fun to watch. I
Yeah,
I feel bad for anyone that did.
I turned it
And
off at halftime.
I
I
turned it
couldn't
off at
watch
the
it
end of the
anymore.
first quarter.
Yeah.
Like Bears become the first team this year to win a game without scoring a touchdown.
I'm surprised Denver's not in that category.
uh, uh, so that completes all the games for this week. It was a really good, fun week of football. My team lost, but Jerry and Jason's team won. That's the
Still rolling,
nature of
baby.
it. It's what'd you say?
So it's still rolling, baby.
Oh yeah.
5 in a row.
But let's take a look at the NFL playoff picture. Right now in the AFC, the 1 seed is the Baltimore Ravens at 9-3. They'd have, if the playoffs were to start today, they'd be on a bye. Um, the 2 seed Chiefs would play the 7 seed Colts. The 3 seed Jaguars would play the 6 seed Browns, and the 5 seed Steelers would travel to Miami to play the 4 seed Dolphins. But right there in the hunt at 6-5 are the Texans and Broncos and 6-6 Bills. But they have a really tough schedule coming down. I really think the uh, wild card spots are basically the 3 teams that you see that are in right now, plus the Texans and the Broncos.
I agree with that. Yeah, I mean, with the Colts at 6-5, you have the Texans and Broncos on the outside looking in on tiebreakers, and with the Browns and their situation at quarterback, they could easily be slipping out of that spot as well. It's gonna be tough coming down
Chill,
the line for all of these teams.
chill, chill.
What?
Yeah, the Browns and Colts. Browns and Colts also the only 2 of those teams that have backup. I mean, the Bengals and Raiders are listed on here, but I really think with only 4 wins and 5 wins that those aren't real contenders. I think that of the teams that have a chance, the Browns and the Colts have kind of the most uphill sledding, considering they're both rocking backup quarterbacks right now. But the Colts haven't scored under 20 points a game this season, quite opposite to the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, the Colts are kind of sneaky good. I think they're sneaky dangerous. Gardner
Shane
Minshew's
Steichen,
got those boys rolling.
yeah, and Shane Steichen coming in, he's really turned that franchise around since Frank Reich has left. Let's take a look at the NFC right now. The 1 seed is held by the Eagles at 10-1. If the playoffs were to start today, the Vikings would travel to San Francisco to take on the 49ers. The Seahawks would travel to Detroit to take on the Lions, and the Falcons would host the Dallas Cowboys. Falcons, obviously the worst of the NFC South, the worst division in football, having a 5-6 team as the head of the division, relatively embarrassing. But that means that division is still wide open. Actually, I saw a stat: the Panthers at 1-10 still have a chance to win their division.
Don't just stop right there.
They have to win out, and then the Saints and the Falcons both have to lose out. Or no, I'm sorry, the Falcons have to lose out and the Buccaneers have to lose all but like 2 games, and then there you go, Panthers
No.
hosting a playoff game.
I think we can officially say, as first reported here on the Unnamed Sports Show, the Carolina Panthers are eliminated from playoff contention. Please, just don't.
In the hunt still in the NFC, you have the Packers, Rams, and Saints all at 5-6, and the Buccaneers, and also the Panthers in that NFC South with the chance.
Hey, we could have all 4 teams from the NFC South in the playoffs.
That's right. That's right. You better watch out. You better watch out. But this is kind of what the NFC playoff picture looks like. My prediction, I think that I think the only team that'll change out of this is the Vikings. I think the Packers will probably take their spot. What do you think?
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. And I excuse me, as far as the NFC South goes, I think the Falcons have pulled it together. I think Arthur Smith realizes that Bijan Robinson is a good player, and he should probably give him the ball a little bit more, as shown this weekend. He had 2 touchdowns. So I do think whoever wins the NFC South is going to have a losing record, which is insane that team is going to host a playoff game. But as far as the final wild card spot, I think the Vikings are going to slip. If they had Kirk Cousins, I think it'd be a different story. I actually think they'd be fighting for that NFC North title, but I just don't think it's their year.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And they already had a season where they barely were winning games and they were,
They were what 11-0 in one score games last year or something like
yeah,
that.
which is absolutely absurd.
Freaking crazy.
So, this is what the NFC playoff picture looks like. It's going to be interesting coming down the stretch. So, this leads us into the probably undisputed when you say best power rankings out there. I mean, the way that we do it, again, for those that have been watching the show, all 15 of you, we take an aggregation of all of our power rankings, put them together, take an average, and that's what spits it out. This isn't just willy nilly. This isn't some sort of, random assortment of teams. This is a legit mathematical equation to determine the current best teams in the NFL. So let's start
That's right.
at the
These
bottom.
power rankings have 5 stars on Yelp, 5 stars on Uber, 10.0 on IMDb, 100 Metacritic score. It's all there, baby. It's all there. It's all you need right here.
Ironically, we're not fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. It's weird. But coming in at the bottom, Panthers maintaining that worst team in the NFL spot. Very impressive. The Patriots also still at number 31. And finally, we have a change. The Cardinals drop a few spots there at 30. The Jets at 29. The Commanders at 28. The Giants. Tommy DeVito. He
Papa the
moves up.
poopy.
They move up a couple spots at 27. The Titans at 26, and the Bears at 25. All of these teams stink. The best set team for the future out of all these teams happens to be the Chicago Bears because they have the first overall pick coming up, and they'll
Mhm.
probably have another top 5 pick. And if they trade Justin Fields, they'll probably have another top 15 pick. So I think they're best positioned, not this year, but at least in the next 3 to 4 years.
And actually, I don't think their defense is as bad as we
No, it's
thought it
good.
was, especially
It's
with the
good.
addition of Montez Sweat. They're actually pretty good.
The number 1 rush defense in the NFL.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Number
they
1 rush defense in the NFL. No, I
yeah.
think they're the number 10 total defense, and that's after they were completely garbage at the beginning of the season.
Mhm.
So, they're definitely have some pieces, especially on that defensive side. You added a weapon like you get Caleb Williams and add a weapon like maybe Marvin Harrison Jr. to DJ Moore on that offensive side, and you're looking at
Mhm.
1 to 2 years being, real contenders in the NFC North.
Yeah, and they have a young offensive lineman in Darnell Wright. If they bolster up a little bit more, there's a lot of things to look forward to if you're a Chicago Bears fan.
Just not this year. The next level of power rankings, we have the Chargers at 24, the Raiders at 23, the Saints, I'm sorry, at 22, Buccaneers at 21, the Bengals at 20, the Rams at 19, the Falcons at 18, the Packers at 17. The Bengals being the largest drop off of any team in the NFL from our previous week, simply because without Joe Burrow, how good can you really be? And when your offensive coordinator, who by the way, without Joe Burrow, I believe is 4-28, so pretty
That's
good.
pretty good.
um, when he's having the backup quarterback throw the ball 40 times in a game, probably not looking good. Packers big move up 5 spots, the number 1 upward moving team because of their win against the Lions.
I disagree with you. I think it's the Falcons. The
Oh,
Falcons
sorry.
went up
Yep,
6 spots
you're
because
right.
they decided to give Bijan Robinson the ball again. But no, the Packers actually, with Jordan Love playing the way he is, I mean, that 7 seed is wide open in the NFC, and they could easily make a run if he wants to play like that. Is there any word on if Aaron Jones is coming back this year? Do you happen to
I
know
don't
that?
know. I don't know the answer to that. If he does come back, that definitely offers an additional weapon and a little bit of relief off
Mhm.
of Jordan Love running the football. But good point on that. Sorry, I missed that, Jerry.
It's
The
okay.
+6 versus +5.
See,
Sometimes
we
math
thought we thought we were good at math. We're 50-50 on math today.
1 for 2. Hey, That's more than the amount of times that Matt Canada has gone for over 400 yards.
That's
Our
right.
next our next level of rankings, these are teams kind of on that cusp. Are these teams gonna make the playoffs? Or are these teams gonna just miss? Tune in next week on Dragon Ball Z. At 16, you have the Vikings, 15 Colts, Bills at 14, Seahawks at 13, Broncos at 12, Steelers at 11, Texans at 10, and the Browns fall so sad to number 9. I think out of all these teams, I think the I think ironically the Bills and Vikings are the least likely to make the playoffs. I think everyone else in here has a really solid shot of finding their way in.
Mhm.
With Matt Canada being gone, the Steelers' offense kind of maybe turning it around. Do you think that they become more of a threat in that AFC North, or do you think that Kenny Pickett still is just garbage?
No, I think Kenny Pickett is still garbage. I think they just played a banged up Bengals team. I don't think, yeah, I just don't see any way that that team, even with Matt Canada not there anymore, they're still playing bad. And George Pickens and Deontay Johnson are not, I mean, they're good. Don't get me wrong. They are good wide receivers, but they are not guys that are going to get you, that are going to win you games. They're going to win 50-50 balls probably 75% of the time, like A.J. Brown or Tyreek Hill, you know? They're not that guy. But you know who is that guy? T.J. Watt. And if their defense can play the way they're playing, then they have a shot.
It is interesting. Did you see that clip of Deontay Johnson on the fumble?
Oh,
Yeah, you ain't winning
how
games
is
doing
he
that.
on the
You ain't
roster
winning
still?
back to back weeks of just being the new Juju Smith
Yeah,
Schuster of the Steelers. 2 weeks ago in the Browns game, off of a miscommunication with Kenny Pickett, just turns to the sidelines. Oh, God, come on. And it's like that. It's like, okay, maybe not the worst thing in the world, but still not a good look. This week, his running back fumbles the ball on a 3rd and 1, and he just watches the Bengals pick it up and
the
run it
ball is
back.
right in front of him. It's
He
right
doesn't
in front of him.
he doesn't not walk the entire play, he's walking. The like, off the ball, he doesn't try to make a move for a route, doesn't try
No,
and block, walks off the ball, then just sits there, looks at it, watches the
I'm good,
fumble
dog.
picked up.
I'm good. Is
I
there
mean,
something in that Steelers wide receiver room? Because you got you got Antonio Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, and now Deontay Johnson. What
do
are they
not
feeding them
move
boys
up
over
Antonio
there?
Brown hotel room. Uh, it is it's absurd. Steelers suck. I hope they miss the playoffs. Okay,
Mhm.
top 8 teams. These are the top 8 teams in the NFL. These are the perennial top teams. If you're watching any other show and they have any other top 8 teams, they're wrong. These are the top 8. Cowboys at number 8, Lions at 7, Dolphins at 6, Jaguars at 5, Ravens at 4, Chiefs 3, Niners 2, and the Eagles maintain their number 1 spot after an overtime win against the Bills at number 1. We're going to preview it here in a little bit. The Eagles and Niners are playing this week, but
Mhm.
the Eagles seem to be just this team that they just have that confidence that yeah, we're gonna win. Like we don't care who we're playing, we don't care how many points we're down, we don't care what the situation is. We just have the confidence of we're gonna win the game, and it's impressive to watch because they don't always look like the most talented. They have the talent. I'm not saying that, but the Niners have looked more dominant in a lot of games this season, but the Eagles just n- unfazable, just come out and they win.
Yeah, if you look at that first half against the Bills, the Eagles did not look good. They did not look like the Super Bowl Eagles that we saw last year. They did not look like a one-loss team. They did not look like the number one team in everybody's power rankings. They, I think Jalen Hurts had, I think he was under 20 yards passing in the first half. And they also, I, I don't know because it seems like the last two games, they've put Jalen Hurts in the elements playing in the rain, and he has not performed. So, my question to you, do you think he has an issue playing in the rain? Do you think he has the ability to kind of step out of that, or do you think that's a real concern for him?
No, I think he'll be fine. I
Yeah.
really don't think it's anything, but it's definitely an interesting. I mean, it's definitely an interesting point, but I think at this point the Eagles they find a way to win. Their players are going to end up by the end of this season. I think they're going to be uh, operating on all cylinders, full cylinders. Good lord, I'm choking over my own words today. Sorry about that. But these have been our power rankings. Um,
The
Again,
correct
like
power
I said,
rankings.
these are correct. You can take this to the bank, at least for this week. We'll see how much they move going forward. Next, we have tomorrow. We have a pretty good matchup. We have the Seahawks traveling to Dallas to play the Cowboys. Cowboys 8.5 point favorites. Interesting. What do you make
Yeah.
of this game?
I think the Seahawks are very overrated. I don't think they're a good team. Um, I think the Cowboys are also kind of overrated, but they're also dominating teams right now, dominating lesser teams. So it depends on where you put the Seahawks and the Cowboys, because we have the Seahawks. They're in the top 12. They're in kind of that top 15 area. Um, I think going into Jerry's world, Geno Smith is not the guy, and with Kenneth Walker still out, the Cowboys are going to dominate this game. Dak Prescott over 225, 2 touchdowns, maybe one on the ground. Brandon Cooks has been playing very well the last 2 games, especially in that game against the Commanders on Thanksgiving. He had a really solid game, and they're also getting the ball to their tight ends and Ferguson and Schoonover, I think his name is
Mhm.
Schoonover. So they're really Dak Prescott is doing a very good job of managing the game, and honestly playing at an MVP level right now. He's 3,000 yards, 23 touchdowns, and only 6 picks on the year. That's with the kind of season that Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, and Josh Allen are having, Dak Prescott is certainly in the category for MVP. I wouldn't be surprised to see him as the front runner. I haven't seen the odds lately, but yeah, I think the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys run away with this one.
I have to agree with you. I don't The Cowboys are undefeated at home this year as well.
Mhm.
And the Seahawks are pretty much a middle of the road in every category. They have a minus 20 point differential at 6-5. They're winning the games they probably should. They're losing the games that they probably should. They're kind of that middle of the road team. I think that the Cowboys, unfortunately, if you're like me and don't really like the Cowboys, they're good this year. I think they're legitimate this year. I think, especially if you look at the last few weeks, they've been absolutely dominant. We'll see what happens as it comes down the stretch here, but I as well give it to the Cowboys. Though he is not here, he is with us in spirit. Jason's moonshot bet of the week.
0-3, so sad.
Yeah. Yeah, very sad. I didn't know if we had a fun graphic like you did last week. I don't know. If you
No,
didn't
not
watch
this week.
it, we had a turkey get launched from a rocket all the way to the moon. It was pretty impressive, though we did not go to the moon last week. You'll also notice the first week, plus 20,000 odds, didn't hit. Second week, plus 10,000 odds, didn't hit. Seems to be that we're working our way to a more reasonable betting style. We're at plus 3,000 odds this
We're getting
week.
there. We're
Jerry,
getting there.
Jerry,
It's baby
go
steps.
ahead. What do we got this week?
All right. So we said the Cowboys are gonna run away with this one, and we'll get to the Cowboys and all their stats in a little bit. But we got to talk about the Seahawks and what they're gonna do this week. Geno Smith is gonna be forced to throw the ball because the Cowboys are gonna go up early. You got Geno Smith over 222 and a half passing yards. Hammer his over. He's going to have to throw the ball to DK. He's going to have to throw the ball to Tyler Lockett. He's going to get one in the end zone. Might be to DK. It might be to Tyler Lockett. It might be to Jackson Smith and Jigba. But he's going to get one in the end zone. Geno Smith, 1+ passing touchdown.
Your JJ impression is impeccable.
Thank you. I've been working on it. Should be coughing my head off right now because I guarantee you that's what he's doing right now. But DK Metcalf, 40+ receiving yards with Trayvon Diggs out on the Cowboys half of the field. DK's gonna have his this game, 40+ receiving yards. Tyler Lockett, 25+ receiving yards. Hammer it. Tyler Lockett, 3+ receptions. Is one of those going to be a touchdown? I don't know. If you want to throw in Tyler Lockett anytime touchdown, boost your odds, boost your money to from 0 to 0, do it because it's going to be a good game. Now let's get to the Cowboys. Dak Prescott over 1.5 passing touchdowns. Dak Prescott 250 plus passing yards. He is going to go to the moon with us. He is going to air it out to CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, Jake Ferguson. You got Lamb 60 plus receiving yards, Brandon Cooks 25 plus receiving yards, and Jake Ferguson also 25 plus receiving yards. Brandon Cook and Jake Ferguson the last couple games, those have been easy hits. Easy hits. And CeeDee Lamb is due for a big game this week. He had one last week. He's going to get another one. Tony Pollard, over 19.5 receiving yards out of the backfield. Also 40 plus rushing yards. And CeeDee Lamb, I just said he's going to have a big game. You got to give him 5 plus catches. And then sprinkle in a little Brandon Cooks 3 plus receptions. FanDuel odds plus 34.86. You bet 100, you win $3,486. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. That's our moonshot bet of the week. We're going 1-3. Hammer it. Hammer it.
All right. Good work, Jerry. Locking down JJ's portion. No one can do it like
Get
JJ.
better, Jason.
No one can do it like
We'll see you
JJ.
next week.
But we'll see you next week when that says 1-3. How ironic if we end up coming back and we're 1-3 on the 1 week that he's not here to give it. We may ask him.
I think
to
if that
leave
happens,
each
I have
time.
to take it over. This is going to be Jerry's moonshot bet of the week.
It has to say Jason's moonshot. He's still got to put it together, but you can read it off.
All
I think I think that would be the. We'll see. We'll see. We got some other massive matchups on Sunday. The biggest one being the battle for the NFC. We'll have the number 1 power ranked Eagles against the number 2 power ranked 49ers. Remember, those are the correct power rankings. 49ers favored 2.5 on the road in Philadelphia. Relatively surprising, I thought. But then I found out Fletcher Cox probably not playing. Massive piece of that interior defensive line against a team that likes to run the football. You also basically Eric Armstead, he'll be back for the 49ers as well as Ray McLeod. They're both listed as questionable, but looks like they're going to be able to play on Sunday. But I think this would be the NFC Championship game. I think this is kind of what all roads are leading to. You know, right now the Eagles 3rd in points per game, Niners 4th in points per game. Niners number 2 in rush yards allowed this season. Eagles number 3 in rush yards allowed per season. Niners first in defensive points per game. So the amount of points they give up. Number 1, Eagles 20th. Not quite as good, but I still think it's going to be a very good game in Philadelphia. What do you think?
I have to agree with you. We got a rematch of the NFC Championship game last year. I know the 49ers kind of have a chip on their shoulder with what happened with their quarterbacks last year. They had Brock Purdy. He had that, I believe it was an elbow injury. He basically couldn't grip the football. Very similar, I think, to what Joe Burrow has.
Joe Burrow's in his wrist.
Oh, it's in his wrist. Okay.
Yeah, the Brock Purdy was in his elbow.
Okay, gotcha.
It was a torn tendon in his elbow. He basically couldn't do this anymore.
Yeah, couldn't throw the ball. He basically had to hand it off to CMC the whole game. And then Josh Johnson came in and basically
got concussed after 3 plays.
This is going to be a great matchup. I do agree with you. I think this is a preview of the NFC Championship game this year. Again, surprised to see the Eagles as dogs sitting at 10-1, but with the way that the Eagles haven't been playing all that great lately against the Chiefs and the Bills,
they just leave the game close.
Yeah, and then they find a way to win it. Find a way to win it, which is you can't apologize for being 10-1, and obviously when you're 10-1 in the NFL, you are a very good team. But the 49ers kind of got Trent Williams back. They kind of got Debo back. They got their mojo back. And CMC, I know we just talked about maybe Dak getting the MVP. CMC also in that category. He is having one heck of a year, both running the ball and catching the ball out of the backfield. I'm so excited to watch this game. I'm not doing anything. I'm not even going to have Red Zone on. I'm going to have this game only on because this is the game of the week by far.
I'm not sure how this isn't flex into Sunday or Monday Night Football.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I understand who makes these flex decisions. This is looking like the NFC Championship. These are 2 of the top 3 teams in the NFL right now, depending on where you put the Chiefs. I mean, it's unbelievable that we have to watch this alongside of, the Browns and the Rams, and I can't remember the other 4 o'clock game this week, but I don't understand why this isn't flexed, but it should be an amazing
What
game.
what is the Sunday night game this week, anyways?
We should probably know that as a sports show. That's why I didn't say it earlier because I can't remember. But
I'll pull it up. It is the Chiefs and the Packers.
ew. What's the
If
Monday
it
night?
if it wasn't Chiefs, then they'd have it.
It would have been flexed out.
Bengals Jags. I don't think they can flex Monday night games. I think they
Oh,
can
they
only
can
do
only
Sunday
flex the
night.
Sunday?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense because of who owns the ESPN owns Monday Night Football, so they
Mhm.
wouldn't want to flex that game out. So yeah,
Correct.
that makes sense. But yeah, I don't understand. Yeah, you're right. I think it's just because it's the Chiefs. But honestly, yeah, and Taylor Swift's probably gonna be there, and so that's why we figured it out. That's why
If I have to hear
Chiefs
Chris
Packers.
Collinsworth say Taylor Swift's name one more time,
Now here's a singer who really knows how to write her own songs. But if you watch Sunday Night Football, that was a perfect impression.
it was.
I'm
We got
taking
Lee
the nine.
Corso and Chris Collinsworth down.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. For this game, I'm taking the Niners. Who you got?
I think I'm going to take the Niners as well. I'm also going to take the under on this one. 47.5 is a lot for a couple of defenses that are playing really well. So I like the Niners in a close one, taking the under. And who knows? I think it's supposed to be pretty rainy again here in Philadelphia. So maybe Jalen Hurts kind of struggles again.
We'll see. We will see. But this has been our NFL talk for the day. Time to shift gears a little bit. We're going to talk about what has been an amazing week in college football. Here are our now top 10 rankings after honestly a really good game, but a unfortunate loss. As I am an Ohio State fan for the Buckeyes. Michigan in our power rankings moves up to number one, similar to our NFL power rankings. Like I'm not sure how we're not contracted with the college football playoff committee yet because these are
I just got that email today. I'll send it to you and we can sign in. We're good to go.
cool. All right, cool. Yeah, because these are the top 10 teams in college football. The top 4 should be, if the playoffs were to start today, who would play in the playoffs. We have Missouri at number 10, Penn State at 9, Florida State at 8, Alabama at 7, Texas at 6, Oregon at 5, Ohio State number 4, Washington number 3, Georgia number 2, and Michigan number 1. It unfortunate loss for the Buckeyes, but I really think that it won't happen because of the teams that are deserving. But I really think Ohio State and Michigan, in my extremely biased opinion, but I think they're 2 of the top 4 teams in college football. And I think both teams, if you were strictly going off who were the 4 best teams, I think both of them would be in the playoffs. What do you think?
I have to agree with you. Although I do have to say the Ohio State Michigan game might have been an unfortunate loss for some Ohio State fans, but me and Jason hit a 13 leg moonshot plus 6,000 odds to win us a little bit of money this weekend. So it sweetened the loss a little bit for Jason. Me, I don't care about Ohio State, so I was very happy. But no, I have to agree with you. I've had Ohio State at number 1 all season long, especially after their wins against Notre Dame and Penn State. And we're talking about a game in which they lost on the last drive, right? It's not like it was a blowout. It was a game against arguably the number 2 team in the nation, and going on the road to the big house, and they played very well. TreVeyon Henderson was playing bully ball. He was getting downfield and lowering his shoulder, got into the end zone. Yeah, that was a great game to watch. I really, really, really would like to see Ohio State in the playoff. I agree with you. Top 4 team, without a doubt. I think if you have a 1-loss Ohio State as of right now, we'll see what happens this weekend, but a 1-loss Ohio State and a 1-loss Oregon, you do give Ohio State the edge, whatever you want to call it, the nudge, whatever, to get into that 4th spot, simply because of their quality wins over Notre Dame and Penn State. But man, Oregon's looking good.
You just mean as in right now.
As of right now, like I said, we'll see what happens this weekend, and I think
Right.
that's why we have them at that fourth spot.
Yeah, if Oregon comes away this weekend with still only one loss, they will jump Ohio State.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
it's hard to
But then,
argue.
we got a whole segment here to talk about scenarios. But then, what happens with a one-loss Washington?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It would be difficult to decide, and we can talk about that here in a minute. But I think that when you look at that game, Michigan jumped out to a really early. They were on Ohio State quick. It was 14-3. You had McCord throw that bad interception on the RPO that looked like Marvin Harrison kind of pulled up on. It was just
Yeah,
not a good play. Threw the interception. Immediately, Michigan's on top 14-3. And then I honestly, the rest of the game felt like Ohio State was the better team. It looked like they
I
had
agree.
the more dominant defense. It looked like they had the more big plays on offense. But it was just Michigan kind of just held on just long enough, and they were able to drain 5 minutes, no, 7 minutes off the clock
Yeah, I didn't
and
think
get it.
Ohio State was going to get the ball again to at
Yeah,
the end of the game.
it was quite a impressive win for Sharon Moore. You can't take anything away from that. I still think it's funny that if Harbaugh leaves, everyone, oh, he's a great Michigan coach. 2-5 against Ohio State. So I don't know how great that really is, but I still it was great to see that the game had the high stakes and lived up to the hype of those high stakes
Mhm.
once again, similar to what we saw in 2007 when they were undefeated, one versus two. Not really what we've seen the last couple years. So that was pretty impressive.
Mhm.
Um,
Just a
yeah,
great
so this,
rivalry week all
yeah,
around. A lot of
I
good games
agree.
this weekend.
A lot of good games. Alabama escapes on a fourth and goal from the 31-yard line, and their defense they had a spy. They only rushed two with one spy. Tell me why would you do that?
Why do
What
you
is
do that? And how
For those that
does
don't know, a spy is when the linebacker or a defensive lineman is sitting a couple yards off the ball, not trying to go to the quarterback. They're sitting off the ball and they're watching the quarterback for if he scrambles. It's meant for second and medium sort of plays with an athletic quarterback so that he's not gashing you for 7 and 8 yard runs. It is not meant for a fourth down when you have the rest of your defense at the goal line. Like you want to flush him out of the pocket. You
Yep.
want him to be running around. You don't want him to just sit back there and be able to read the whole field. It makes no sense. It was terrible coaching. They should have won that game,
Yep.
but Alabama survives.
Terrible coaching, but you can't take the credit away from Jalen Milroe because that was an absolute dime
Yeah,
that he threw.
yeah,
Absolute dime, absolute incredible catch by the receiver. How does the defensive back also not have the wherewithal to know, hey, it's fourth and goal from the 31. If there's any chance of this ball being caught, I can commit a penalty right here.
yeah,
Alabama does not win the game off a penalty. Yeah, they get a first. They get a first and goal. It'd be from what, the 16 or something like that. You gotta have the better game sense, better game knowledge of the game state. But again, not taking anything away from Jalen Milroe because that was an absolute missile of a throw. Beautiful
yeah.
to see.
It doesn't make any sense either. Why is any of the defenders' backs turned to the quarterback? There should have been
Mm,
six Auburn defenders rushing on that ball as soon as it was thrown. Every defender should have their eyes on the ball because that's the only like go make a play on the ball. Like that there's nothing you can't get beat behind you. There's only 10 yards back there. I don't know how you lose that. But Alabama finds a way to win. They got a chance to sneak into the playoffs. It was an amazing week of college football. These are the top 10. As far as the Heisman, that's a segment we've been doing for the last few weeks. Going to be real brief here. It's between Bo Nix and Michael Penix Jr. The winner of the Oregon Washington Pac-12 championship is going to win that game. I
mm.
really don't see anyone else being able to win that award. Do you, Jerry?
No, I agree with you. Unfortunate to see a season that Jaden Daniels is having kind of go to waste. Not wasted, but with a 3-loss team, kind of sucks. But because he's having an incredible year. But yeah, definitely Penix and Bo Nix, whoever wins. I mean, I would almost think even if Washington wins, Bo Nix has a chance because he's he's playing absolutely lights out right now. And Penix has had a couple of down games, but yeah, I think whoever wins this game is also gonna win the Heisman.
It'll be interesting to see, and that is a perfect segue into conference championships. First one, Friday night, Oregon travels. Or no, I'm sorry, it's a neutral site, isn't it?
Yeah, and
Sorry.
I don't know where
Uh,
it's at.
I don't know either. I don't pay enough attention to
Ooh,
Pac-12 football, but I
Lumenfield,
do
maybe.
know that it could be anywhere.
Yeah.
But it's between Oregon and Washington. You have a one-loss Oregon against an undefeated Washington, and Oregon's only loss coming to Washington. Oregon 9.5 point favorites, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact they have just been, since their loss to Washington, absolutely dominant. No game has been within one score. It's been just complete and utter domination from Oregon. They have the number two offense in points and yards, only behind LSU, which that's Jaden Daniels,
Mhm.
and then the number 15 defense in yards allowed and number seven in points allowed, with only, again, two games being within one score every other game, and that includes their loss to Washington. That's not two wins within one score. That's two total games within one score. Every other game they have won by two or more scores. They are absolutely bludgeoning teams to death. Washington, on the other hand, 6 of their 12 wins have come by one score, by 7 points, or I'm sorry, 8 points or fewer. So they're winning games, but a lot more close. Oregon's blowing teams out. I think that's why you see the 9.5 point favorite to a team that they already beat. Should be an interesting end to the Pac 12.
Yeah, sad to see the
And real
Pac-12
quick,
go. Go
winner
ahead.
of this game, well, not doesn't matter who the winner is. Both of these teams are coming to the Big Ten next year.
Yeah, which is gonna be awesome. It's gonna be awesome, along with USC and UCLA and
That's
Arizona.
it.
Is that
That's
it?
it. Just those
That's it.
four.
Just those four.
Those four.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Whoever wins this game wins the Pac-12 forever, and that's you can't take that away from them until the Pac-12 comes back. But yeah, you said it best. 6 of Washington's 12 wins have been by one score. That includes their last two games, in which this weekend they escaped the Apple Cup on a last-second field goal on a drive that their head coach, his name is escaping me. I apologize, but he had a gutsy play call on 4th and 1 on the fake handoff to the running back. And then he's got the wide receiver in reverse. Absolutely
Louisiana.
insane play call. But yeah, they went on a last second field goal and kind of escape. And then they also beat Oregon State 2 weeks ago by one score, a team that
Good
Oregon
point.
just absolutely dominated on this last Friday night in the Perry the Platypus Bowl. So I'm glad to see Oregon 9.5 point favorites, because I'm looking for Bo Nix to get his revenge and take home that Heisman and get into the college football playoff.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a great game. It's going to be high scoring again. I think that when they played earlier this year, that might be, that game and then the game, Ohio State Michigan, I think were the two best games so far this year, as far as what it means to the sport of college football and how good of games that they actually were.
Mhm.
So it should be a great one on Friday night. On Saturday, we have Oklahoma State versus Texas. Texas, 14.5 point favorites. They have been great since Quinn Ewers has come back. They just destroyed Texas Tech this last week. And again, you're looking at a one-loss Texas, who, by the way, beat Alabama in, oh, by the way, Tuscaloosa. So one of the hardest places to play, by double digits. Their only loss this year to an Oklahoma team that is very good, that they lost in the Red River Shootout. Is that what it's called?
I think it's the Red River rivalry now. Say that five
Red.
times fast.
Oh, you're not allowed to say shootout
Yeah,
anymore.
the S out.
So
Red
anyway,
Red
Oklahoma
Red
State,
River rivalry. I can't do.
Red, the triple R.
Yeah.
Um, and that game came down to the wire. Oklahoma made some amazing plays coming down the stretch. Now they have a very up and down Oklahoma State team. If they win that game, they're probably in, but there's a scenario in which they're not. Uh, I really think this is Texas's game to lose.
Yeah, no doubt. You said it best. Quinn Ewers is playing very well. We got to see a little bit of Arch Manning last week against Texas Tech, which was kind of cool to see. And
Just come to Ohio State. Just transfer.
how many
Transfer
years
to
does Quinn
Ohio
Ewers have left? who also transferred from Ohio State. So they should
Yeah,
just
so
make a
he
trade.
could. Yeah,
Just
exactly.
complete the trade.
He could go to the NFL this year. I don't think he will because of how stacked that quarterback class is. So I think he'll probably wait one more. I think he can wait one more year.
Yeah, I think if he waits one more year, he'll probably be in the running for number one pick next year.
Yeah.
Just so how stacked this year is. But yeah, Texas is playing really good football right now. They kind of have to have a couple of things fall their way for them to get into the college football playoff. Unfortunately, they do not control their own destiny. I, based on the eye
They
test,
should. They should, but they don't.
but
You
they
don't
don't.
agree? You don't agree from the eye test?
No, I don't. I don't think they're one of the top four teams in the nation right now. I don't. It's got to be Georgia, Michigan, but just based on the eye test, Georgia, Michigan, Oregon, Ohio State. Those are my top four based
Yeah,
on the
that's
eye
probably.
test.
I think Texas is at number 5 of that group. I'd have to agree. I think
Yeah.
they're right on that cusp. I think Texas, Alabama, they're both on that just outside. You hate to say that about Washington, who's undefeated. I don't think that they're just defensively and on the line of scrimmage just not good enough to compete.
Yep.
I think with
They've
some of
had
these other
they've had too
teams
many close calls the last couple weeks too, and that's kind of how I feel with Texas. They had a game, I believe, against Kansas State
with their backup quarterback
with their
though.
backup quarterback, but it was still a close game. I mean,
I don't know. I don't.
I mean, we're if for the same reason we're leaving out Florida State, who's undefeated. You know, they have their backup quarterback.
Yeah, but they're not. They don't have their starting quarterback now. That's what I'm saying.
That's
Like
true.
if Quinn Ewers was still out, then I wouldn't have an argument to make. I would agree, but he's not out. He's in. He's one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the NCAA. I think that Texas has an argument at least.
Oh,
Uh,
I agree. I agree. I agree with that.
um, but 14.5 point favorites. If you're an Ohio State fan, put on your Cowboys uniform and root for Oklahoma State because if Texas
Yep.
wins, there is no way Ohio State gets into the college football playoffs. Most likely. Moving on, SEC championship game: Georgia versus Alabama. Georgia 6.5 point favorites. Georgia, the only undefeated SEC team left. They have Brock Bowers back. He's looking good. Alabama, only one. The only loss was to Texas. Should have 2 losses. Should have lost to Auburn last week, but didn't. And all that matters is your record is what your record is. They have 1 loss. They win. They're in. So definitely some major playoff implications in that game.
Yeah, I agree with you. Georgia is one of the two teams, win or lose, they're in the college football playoff no matter what, I think, unless it's an absolute blowout, but we don't, it's not going to be that way. Um, Again, if you're an Ohio State fan, you are rooting for the Bulldogs. If Alabama wins this game, I think no matter what happens, they are in the college football playoff. If they come
Yep.
out and beat Georgia, they are going to be in the college football playoff with Georgia. Um,
And probably Texas.
yeah.
And probably Texas, because if Alabama beats Georgia, that makes Texas's win over Alabama in Alabama that much better.
Mm.
Assuming
Yeah.
Texas wins as well.
And we're all, we're also assuming there's so many scenarios because then you got to talk about the Pac-12, right? Because you have Georgia, who's in no matter what, Michigan, who's probably in no matter what, win or lose. I think Michigan's in no matter what.
I agree. I don't think Georgia's in no matter what.
Really?
Really. I think, and we can get to that in a minute. Let's circle back.
All right.
We'll
Bring it back down. Bring it
we'll
back
circle back. What was the name of that old press secretary that always said that? We'll circle back to that, but we'll actually be sure to circle back. Should be a great one for the SEC
Mhm.
championship game. Next up, you have Michigan versus Iowa. Michigan 22.5 point favorites, 22.5 with a 34.5 point over under total. Absolutely absurd.
Mhm.
Jerry, what was that first half point total set at for Iowa?
Yeah, on FanDuel you can bet $100 to win $100, so your total payout $200 for Iowa to just score 1 point in the first half. Their over under for their first half total is 0.5. That's how bad this Iowa offense is. There's a reason Brian Ferentz is gone after this year. Yeah, Michigan should absolutely dominate these guys. I gotta be honest. There's nothing quite like watching Big Ten West football because it's just punt, defense, interception, turnover on downs. There's absolutely zero scoring. Unfortunately for Iowa, Michigan is the number 2, if not number 1 team in the nation right now, and they are going to absolutely dominate these guys in Indianapolis.
Could be Michigan's third straight Big Ten title. Makes me vomit just thinking about it. Louisville versus Florida State. Florida State, 2.5 point dogs with their backup quarterback against the Louisville team coming off a
2.5 point
loss.
favorites.
Did I say dogs?
You
My
did say
fault.
dogs.
My fault. Louisville's 2.5 point dogs. Florida State 2.5 point favorites in a game against a team coming off of a loss, tough loss against Kentucky during rivalry week. If Florida State looks to remain undefeated and win the ACC title for the first time since famous Jameis Winston in 2014. And then Louisville basically playing spoiler at this point.
Mm-hmm.
They're not gonna let the first a two loss team into the playoffs be the Louisville. It's not going to happen. So, you know, they're basically looking for a New Year's Six bowl here and to play spoiler to Florida State. Do you think Florida State can figure this out and win, or do you think they just don't have it without their starting quarterback?
No, I think Florida State will win this game. I do think if Louisville had beaten Kentucky last week, they would be favorites. Probably 2.5 point favorites. Probably the other way around. But I do think Florida State comes in with their backup quarterback and wins this game and goes 13-0 ACC champs. Unfortunately, I do think no matter what, they are left out of the college football playoff, even being 13-0, no matter what happens.
That's a good segue into playoff scenarios. So you think Florida State, undefeated, ACC champions, Power Five. This isn't MAC. This isn't Sun Belt. This is Power Five college football, undefeated. You don't think the committee puts them in?
No, I don't. They've kind of been on the outside looking in. They've been sitting in that number 4 spot. I think last week they were dropped to number 5 with Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, and Washington. Um, if Oregon wins and it's a close game, Oregon and Washington I think both get in, and then you've got Georgia who's automatic, and I think Michigan is also automatic. So there's your 4 teams. If it's a blowout, they leave Washington out. You got Georgia, Michigan, Oregon, and then I think they put a 1-loss Ohio State team ahead of Florida State. It's unfortunate that that's the conference that they play in. I know it's a Power 5 conference, but it's the ACC, and they haven't really played anybody besides a 3-loss LSU team who they beat the wheels off of them week 0. But without their starting quarterback, if you look at the eye test, you cannot put them in ahead of a 1-loss Ohio State team or a 1-loss Oregon or even a 1-loss Washington team that kept it close in a Pac-12 championship
Listen,
game.
I think this is some wishful thinking because I agree with you. I don't think Florida State. I don't think of Florida. I think Florida State's worse than. Honestly, I think Florida State right now would lose to Penn
Yeah, we have
State
them
or
at what, number
Missouri.
8 in our power
Yeah,
rankings right now? Like
yeah,
they're
but
even though they're
I think
undefeated.
yeah, but I think they even lose right now to Penn State, Missouri, Ole Miss. I think all of them beat Florida State without their starting quarterback. But the problem is the committee has them at number 4. The committee knows they have a backup quarterback. They know that they just beat a terrible Florida team barely.
Mm-hmm.
They still kept them at number 4. I think if they beat Louisville, they're going to go, oh, well, Ohio State won a national championship with their third string quarterback. Why can't Florida State do the same? Even though the only reason we got in is because we beat Wisconsin 59-0. That
Yep.
was the only reason we were in the college football playoffs. And
And they had
obviously,
somebody lose that year too that they needed to,
yeah,
I believe.
had
Yeah.
somebody lose, and we also had Ezekiel Elliott. So enough said.
Yeah.
But um, you're looking at a Florida State team that they don't have a starting quarterback. They're not a very good team. They were barely beating teams with their starting quarterback. But I think the committee. I can't. I agree with you that they aren't a top 4 team, but I don't think the committee is going to leave them out. I think if Florida State wins, they're in. I think I also don't agree that if Oregon beats Washington, Washington's in. I think Washington's out. I think Washington's playing for a spot. I
You
don't
think
think
even
they're
if
automatic.
Washington keeps it close and they lose, they're out?
Yeah, I do.
Even
Well,
though their only loss would be to Oregon, who
let's
they
say,
also
let's
beat
say,
earlier in the year
let's
in a close
say,
game.
let's agreed. No, I don't think that uh, Washington will get put in. But let's let's just say Georgia wins, Michigan wins, Texas wins. Florida State loses. Well, let's keep them out of it for a second. So your three spots are taken: Georgia, Michigan, and Texas, most likely if Texas wins. And then you're basically coming down to Washington, Oregon. I really think that if Oregon wins, they'll put a Texas team in over Washington. I think that Washington's had too many close games. They barely escaped with They only put up 15 points against Arizona. Arizona's not a bad team, but you're talking about what's supposed to be a perennial amazing offense. Like Joe Burrow never scored only 15 points in a game. Like obviously that's one of the greatest teams ever, but the point being that this is supposed to be an extremely high powered offense. They've had too many close calls. Uh they haven't been dominant enough in my opinion to be ranked in if they lose this game. I think Oregon on the other well Oregon if they're also playing for a
Yeah,
win or loss.
Oregon has to win to get in. They're not going to put a
Yeah, they're
two-loss
not.
Oregon team in.
No, no. I think uh, Texas has to win. They're still not 100% in, and that's because if Florida State, I think they put Florida State, Michigan, Georgia, and Washington or Oregon in over Texas. Unfortunately, I don't agree with it, but I think that they do.
I think
And then
I think they put Ohio State in above Texas as well.
I don't. I don't think so. Not if Texas is a Big 12 champ
Yeah,
with one loss. No,
depends on who the other three teams are. I think they would.
I think if you are an Ohio State fan, this is what you have to root for. You have to root for Washington to beat Oregon, just to make sure that they're not going to throw two Pac-12 teams. That one's I think the least important of all of these, but you definitely that's one you got to root for. You
Mhm.
have to root for Oklahoma State. This is the biggest one. You have to have Oklahoma State beat Texas because I think Texas jumps Ohio State if they have a Big 12 champ on their or they're a Big 12 champion on their resume. You have to have Georgia. This is the other big one. Georgia has to beat
Yeah,
Alabama. If Alabama beats Georgia, no chance.
yeah.
And then Louisville has to beat Florida State. Jerry, you're not as heavy on this one. I think the committee will put in an undefeated Florida State before they put in a one-loss non-champ Ohio State.
Yeah, I just disagree with you on that one. I think we're talking about an Ohio State team that I think the committee will look at. They'll say, "Hey, Michigan is ranked. Was Michigan ranked number? Michigan's number 2, yeah. So Michigan's
Mm.
ranked number 2 in their college football playoff rankings. We're talking about an Ohio State team that lost by one score on a last drive interception to the number 2 team in the nation, and otherwise has
On the road.
dominated teams on the road. And otherwise
Yeah.
has dominated teams. They went into Notre Dame, beat them on the last play of the game, handled business at home against Penn State, and has just dominated other teams, the rest of the Big Ten, and their non-conference games. I think the committee would look at that and be like, this is a team that can compete with the top 4 team or the other 3 teams in the college football playoff, whereas Florida State without their starting quarterback cannot. And they showed that last week against Florida, barely beating them by one score. And I think this week they're going to struggle against Louisville too.
Listen, I don't disagree with you. I think Florida State's not very good. But it's telling what the committee wants to do because they ranked Clemson at 23. Clemson with 4 losses is
It is
ranked
so
23rd.
stupid.
It's the same. They have a big bias towards the
Yeah,
SEC and the ACC. Okay, they put Clemson at 24, no business being 24, and they put Tennessee, who's lost to Florida this year. They have 4 losses on the season. They're ranked 21. They have no
that is
wins against
ridiculous.
teams. Yeah, they are terrible. They are terrible. They're ranked 21 to bolster Alabama and Georgia's rankings. It is absolutely BS. It's the same thing like putting Missouri's a good team, don't get me wrong, but they're putting Missouri over Penn State. I think you have Missouri over Penn State too. Penn State's
Mhm.
only losses this year are to Ohio State and Michigan. They have beat every other team by 2 scores, with exception of one Big Ten game. They beat Iowa, who's playing in the Big Ten championship, by 30 points,
They didn't let them score.
31
Shut
to
them out.
0.
Yeah.
They're the number 3 defense in college football, but because they play in the Big Ten, because they're not SEC, they're not in this ACC SEC bias area. They're below Missouri. I just People were like, "Oh, who cares? It's just a couple spots." It matters because it determines who makes it to the playoffs. Matters because it determines the rankings and the resumes of the teams above them. They
Yeah, the
always
biggest thing that the committee looks at is strength of schedule, you
Yeah,
know?
and then they throw up. They Every time they go, okay, what are the two teams we're looking at? And you go side by side, and they'll say the quality wins, and they'll show the teams they beat, and quality losses, the teams that they've lost to, and strength of schedule, blah 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 blah. Well, when you ranked a terrible Tennessee team at 21 and a not very good Clemson team at 23, that automatically bolsters resumes of teams that
Mhm.
probably ought not to be bolstered by those resumes. So it
It's
bothers me,
it
and I
it
think that it that is the reason that Ohio State has probably had the door shut on them, except if you have a lot of things
yeah.
go their way this weekend.
Yeah, which is unfortunate, but it makes me really, really excited for the 12 team playoff next year. It is
Yeah,
going to be awesome. This would have been the perfect year for the 12 team playoff
yeah,
to start it off. I hope
I
the same
agree.
thing happens next year. Like,
I agree. This is by
amazing.
far the most parity in the sport we've seen in a long time. Um, you look at, I think really only, so you go back to the 11th team and then pick the non-power five best team. So that's Liberty right now. They're at 24. So they're not great, but they're undefeated. And then go ahead. Who am I
Uh,
missing?
Tulane. I think Tulane's ahead of them.
Oh, are they?
Tulane's
Okay.
at Tulane. They're one loss, but I think they have them ranked like 19 or 20.
Interesting, because Liberty's like 20, 24, 22 or
Yeah.
24,
Which
somewhere in
they're
there.
undefeated. I think they should be ahead of them.
Mhm.
Um,
But either way, you look at the top 11 teams. It's right now the committee has Georgia, Michigan, Washington, um, Florida State, Ohio State, Oregon, I'm going a little bit out of order now, but Penn State, Missouri, Ole Miss, and Texas and Alabama. Like, can you imagine how good a playoff scenario would be with those teams? I mean,
it'd be amazing.
it would be fantastic. I
What would
can't wait
make
for
it
the
even
sport.
better is if Iowa were to somehow win the Big Ten championship and sneak in.
That would be
Uh,
amazing. Watching a team punt their way through the playoffs
yeah.
is would be about the best thing we've ever seen. But
Yeah,
it, it's
no,
going to be
dude, go
it's
ahead.
going to be a fun weekend. It's going to be a blast watching these how it all unfolds. It's one of the best years of college football I remember watching in my entire life. So, Ohio State may have lost, but they look good. Everyone in that top 10 honestly looks good. I'm really excited to see how it ends coming down the stretch.
Yeah, me too. And I think it speaks volumes that you can make a case for 8 of the teams to be in
Mhm.
right now. You know, that's how much parity is in college football right now, and how strong the nation is and all these teams. Um, yeah, I can't stress it enough. I'm excited for the 12 team playoff next year.
It will be amazing. Shifting gears, we're going to talk finally about a different sport, the NBA. And I'm going to hand it over to my co host, Jerry, because to be 100% honest with you, I don't know jack about the NBA this year. I like the Cavs. I know the players on the Cavs. That's about it. And as a host of a sports show, I should probably do a better job at knowing the NBA, but I don't care till December. Jerry, what is going on in the NBA right now?
Yeah, you said it last week. You don't think the NBA starts until Christmas, so I'll take it. I'll take it here at the end of November. Uh, the in-season tournament group play just ended. We finally got our group winners and our wild card teams from the East and the West. Um, a heck of a night last night. going into the games here. There were a lot of spots on the line that were still up for grabs. I know the East wild card spot was still up for grabs. Group B and C were still up for grabs, and I think the entire West outside of Group A was also up for grabs. Unfortunately, the Cavaliers, even though they won by 23 points, were not able to clinch a wild card spot. It happened to go to
What?
the Knicks. Yeah, really, really unfortunate because I think the Cavs have been playing a very, very strong brand of basketball the last couple of games. But you got the Celtics who come away as their group winner. They are just absolutely dominating teams right now. The Nets did not make it, I believe. Yeah, it's the Celtics, the Bucks, the Knicks. It is the Nets. I can't remember. We'll get to it in the next graphic. But we had a heck of a game last night. Started at like 10:30, so it went until about 1 a.m. I stayed up and watched the whole thing between the Warriors and the Kings. The Kings were down by 24 points. And this is kind of how the in-season tournament has ramped things up because the Kings either needed to win or lose by 11 or less to make it into the knockout stage and win their group. So they were down by 24 going, I think it was like maybe at halftime or even a little bit into the third quarter. And most of the time, a lot of players will give up, and coaches will start pulling the starters. The Kings coach, Mike Brown, he kept them all in. They battled back. De'Aaron Fox absolutely balled out. He had 29 points, I think a couple of threes. Kevin Huerter was sitting at like 5 threes on the game, something like that. But they battled back, were able to win the game, ended up winning their group in an absolute banger of a game, just threes back and forth. I mean, the Warriors were 12 of 25 from 3 at halftime, which is just absolutely ridiculous. And Steph Curry only had 2 of those threes. So
Wow.
you had Wiggins and Klay Thompson just absolute lights out. Wiggins had 29 last night, along with Steph Curry, one of his best games as a Warrior. That was just an exciting game to watch. So we get into the Eastern Conference here. Here's your groups: Pacers, Bucks, Celtics winning their groups, and the Knicks clinching that wild card spot. These knockout stage games start December 4th and go until December 9th, I believe. So we're looking at next week, I believe. Yeah, next
Hmm.
week. So next Monday. Again, sad to see the Cavs not get it in. Also, kind of surprising to see the Sixers with Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid not get in. They're playing a really good brand of basketball as well. Now we'll get into the Western Conference. Lakers, Pelicans, Kings all win their group. Pelicans kind of a shock. You'd think a team like the Mavericks or the Nuggets, not the Clippers because James Harden freaking blows. But those three, the Pelicans, really surprising. Zion Williamson is having a really nice season. They also just got CJ McCollum back. So he will be in the knockout stage. He hasn't been playing, so really telling them to win that group without him. And then the Suns clinching that wild card spot. Kevin Durant, D Book, Bradley Beal, maybe. I think he's still on injured reserve. But they got a matchup with the Lakers coming. It's going to be KD versus LeBron in the first round. Should be pretty exciting. We'll get into the actual tournament. So here are the matchups. We got the Bucks and the Knicks going at it. Pacers, Celtics. Again, Lakers, Suns should be an awesome series or awesome game. I think it's just one game, not a series like the playoffs. And then the Kings and the Pelicans. Ryan, I know you said you don't know a whole lot about basketball. Who's winning it? Who's winning it? Give us
It's pretty
your
clear.
team.
It's pretty clear from my extensive knowledge of the NBA right now. LeBron James is still in the NBA, am I right?
That is correct. Sources
He's still
say.
playing.
Sources say he's still
He's
playing.
still playing at an incredibly elite level, correct?
Yeah, you could say that for
Give
being
me the
40 years
Lakers.
old.
The Lakers are gonna win. I hate to say it. I'm not a fan. Since he left Cleveland, it makes me sad. And since the Cavs aren't in it, I can't root for him. I don't know anything about any of the teams in the East really right now. So give me the Lakers. Give me LeBron. They're winning it. Take it to the bank right now.
All right, so you think LeBron is going to ball up on KD like he did when KD was on the Thunder and he was on the Heat, absolutely shut him down and take it home.
Easy, easy
All right.
money. Give me the Lakers.
All right. I'm gonna take the Bucks. I think Giannis paired up with Dame Lillard and Chris Middleton. That team is shooting lights out right now. There's a reason they're the 1 seed in the East going into this knockout stage. Giannis 29, I believe last night he might have reached 30. Lillard also 29 the other night. So he is playing lights out. And they just have one of those lineups. They finally got the missing piece in Dame Lillard that they needed. I think they're going to be making a run not only for this in-season tournament championship, but maybe looking to get their second championship here in the last couple of years with Giannis.
Yeah, no, I have to. I would agree as far as the championship goes. The addition of Damian Lillard with Giannis is absolutely ridiculous, and I don't know how teams can do these things. It's like the old Breaking Bad meme. They can't keep getting away with this. How do teams get these massive super teams put together? It seems like every other year a new team is appearing with absolute all stars. It's pretty cool to watch. It's making the NBA compelling, and I think I'll probably start paying attention here in Christmas. So it's coming up.
Yeah.
Coming up.
Yeah, Christmas is less than a month away.
I know it's
Isn't that
pretty
crazy?
absurd. I should probably start buying some presents for people.
Yeah.
But
Same here. Yeah.
on that note, that wraps up our NBA talk. For everyone that's joined us today, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, leave us a comment. We'll be sure to respond. Follow us on our social media at unnamed sports s, that is on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, or I'm sorry, X, whatever it's called these days. You can watch us on YouTube, on Twitch, and you can find us on any platform or wherever you find your podcasts afterwards. This will be all uploaded to Spotify, Apple, all the locations that you look for podcasts. You can find us there. So, thanks again, everyone, for joining us. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, and we will see you next time.
Take it easy, everybody.